Do you believe in miracles? And is it even realistic to believe in miracles in a century that depends solely on scientific explanations? Our hearts have grown hard to the workings of Jesus, and especially in a world so influenced by the enemy, it can sometimes be difficult to determine who is working in our lives. Who are we allowing to work in our lives? And who do we take pleasure in? Please pray with me. Dear God, I come to you today, and I thank you for my friends and my family and my peers and my classmates and the professors at Howard Payne and all of your people, Lord. I just pray that you would keep us safe in this time of sickness and isolation. Help us to be healthy and help us to continue to do your work to further your kingdom, Lord. I pray that you would bless the words that come out of my mouth so that they can be used for your glory. It's in your name I pray. Amen. I'm going to be reading out of the book of Matthew, chapter 14, verses 13 through 21, which the NIV version of the Bible states, verse 13. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. And hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw the large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said, and he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. And they all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. This is a very familiar story, especially if you grew up in the church, if you had religious grandparents or religious parents, or you've gone to Sunday school, Vacation Bible School, Awanas, you grew up in a Christian school, you know this story. It's very familiar, and it teaches about the miracles that Jesus performed while he walked the earth. It teaches about the skepticism of the disciples, even though they had seen Jesus perform miracles time and time and time again. But this story is much more significant for God's people than just a miracle that was performed. Especially now, in a time of isolation, sickness, and just feeling alone, it's time to be able to believe in miracles. Verses 13 and 14. If we break these verses down, we can see clearly that Jesus needed to isolate himself. It says, when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place so that the crowd would follow him. He wanted to be alone with them. He wanted to be isolated from the rest of the town. That is a lot like us today, except we do not have to take the time to isolate ourselves to listen to Jesus because he has already done that for us. He wants uninterrupted time with his people. Jesus wants that time with us so we can listen to his teachings, his word. He is full of love and compassion. He wants to heal our sickness. There are many individuals in this nation and around the world suffering from the COVID-19 virus. We are literally sick. But I believe that there's an even deeper message here that we can also enforce, which is not only healing humanity from this sickness, but it's healing humanity from our own sick hearts who have become hard, who have become selfish, who are not listening to the words of God. I don't know about you, but I personally have been a skeptical disciple before. Verse 17 says, "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish." The disciples were looking at Jesus and thinking, yeah, I hate to break it to you, Jesus, but there's 5,000 people out here. 5,000 men. That doesn't include women and children. There's absolutely no way that we are going to be able to feed all of them. It's a nice thought, but it's not going to happen. And Jesus, rich with compassion, told the disciples, just bring them to me. Just bring the 5 loaves and the 2 fish to me. I'll take care of it. See what I can do with them. And yet again, Jesus was able to provide for his people. Jesus knows the hearts of his disciples, and this was not the first time that they had been skeptical of his capabilities. They had seen Jesus perform miracles time and time and time again. But I believe that Jesus was not only asking his disciples to bring them the food that they had, he was asking the disciples to bring him their faith. And I can only imagine the disciples' faces as Jesus continued to pull out food for the men to eat. Verse 20 says, "They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish turned into 12 basketfuls of food. Jesus was able to provide for all of those people. The fact of the matter is not that Jesus was able to provide. It's that Jesus is still able to provide. He was able to provide for his people in the grass, sitting and listening to his message in isolation, and he is able to provide to those of us now standing on earth. In a time where we feel that we have to stockpile food, and we're getting sick, and we feel broken, Jesus is standing in front of our nations saying, bring me your fish and bread. Bring me your faith and watch what I can do with it. Do you believe in miracles now?